In September, aircraft 22 made 3 low-altitude penetration flights. All were made at over 700 miles an hour and at 500 feet or less above the terrain. During these flights, performance of the aircraft was better than predicted and fully reliable. The crew reported environmental conditions favoring maximum efficiency and comfort. Aerodynamically, its delta wing configuration proved to have particular, even unique adaptability for high-speed, low-level operations. On these flights, the structure endured a wide variety of temperature and wind conditions over differing terrains. For a more intimate picture of these plus factors, let's follow flight number 3, the longest of the series, which took place on September 18th. This flight went from California, then to a point over the mountains where the airplane started back across the valley. This portion of the flight was made entirely at low altitude and amounted to 2 hours elapsed time. Shortly after taking up its westerly course, the airplane reached its assigned speed of 610 knots, or better than 700 miles per hour, for the 1,217 nautical miles of the outward leg. The main objectives of the flight were twofold. First, to evaluate the ability of a crew to fly for long distances at low altitude and high speed. Second, to obtain data for verification of predictions on performance, especially as to range and speed. Fully briefed as to the test plane's course and time of arrival, camera crews were placed at selected positions. The total result was 10 seconds of film, or a couple of blinks of the human eye. Farther out in the mountains, still another camera crew awaited. Obviously, this keeping pace with its own sound could prove a factor in escaping enemy observation at low level. As we have just heard, the sound is intense during the moment of its passing directly overhead. Strangely enough, though, observers of its flight path reported its characteristic whoosh as barely discernible. Pilot descended to 200 feet to seek out areas of lush vegetation in order to check bug accretion on the windshield. The few bug impacts were found to have a negligible effect on the pilot's vision. This can be attributed to the highly swept configuration. Low-flying aircraft normally experience considerable atmospheric turbulence over rough, arid terrain in warm weather. Aircraft 22 was no exception, with just such conditions encountered frequently along its westward path. However, several factors combined to provide an incredibly smooth ride despite these atmospheric disturbances. The most important of these was the small response of the aircraft to gusts owing to its delta wing. A secondary reason was the structural arrangement and rigidity, providing good damping of the airframe. Navigation was accomplished by pilotage, using dead reckoning and visual checkpoints. Several important features had been built in to provide ease of maneuverability and increased flight safety. For instance, the flight control system, which gives effortless pilot control and smooth, positive response immediately. Next, the automatic G limiting provision within the system assuring that maneuvers are kept within tolerable limits, a fact that is also reassuring to the crew. The track and distance of the flight were planned to simulate the varying terrain and targets of an actual low-level penetration. Thus, on this third flight, we have already seen Aircraft 22 coursing swift and low across our southwestern plains. Next, the mountains of California, to be skillfully used by crew. Now, target dead ahead. The payload for this type of mission. Next, the secondary target. But worsening weather over the coastal area canceled that out. On a mission of this type, both targets have been chosen, by the way, to avoid heavily populated areas. Once clear and away, the airplane goes to altitude, a normal maneuver for maximum range. The return leg at cruise altitude was routine and uneventful. Here, the crew was able to compare notes on their mission and, incidentally, on themselves. Their reaction to the low-altitude flight was unanimous. It had been an easy task, accomplished with physical or psychological hindrances. Neurotic depression, loss of sense of reality, tunneling of vision, or excessive fatigue. In fact, it was a flight that could be done by any crew with special training or preparation.